On the 31st of March 2007 at 7 p.m, a 5-year-old boy tuned into BBC One, unaware that what he was about to see was going to become an obsession that would take over his life. That boy was me. After its second season, there'd be another shake-up in the cast. Whilst David Tennant was staying as a Doctor, Billie Piper leaving left the companion slot open, so for the Christmas special they decided to have a one-episode companion, Donna. Whilst having done a few unsuccessful comedies, Barking, Big Train and Wild Rest, Catherine Tate had come to prominence with The Catherine Tate Show, receiving a number of BAFTA nominations.
You are the most insolent child I've ever had the misfortune to teach.
Thank you.
As Donna, she brought a lot of comedy to the special and became very memorable as the Runaway Bride.
What?
What the hell is this place?
Following on from Doomsday's cliffhanger, Donna found herself being beamed to the TARDIS while walking down the aisle. After accusing the Doctor of kidnapping her, he has to get her back to the wedding, giving us this ATM scene, that's fake money by the way, and the famous motorway chase.
Now jump!
Turns out her fiancé is working for this giant spider, the Arachnos, and has been filling her with particles to feed to its children.
God, she's thick. Months I've had to put up with her. Months. A woman who can't even point to Germany on a map.
The Arachnos is a distinctive design, this giant spider. Whilst it doesn't move much, Sarah Parish adds a lot with her performance. Turns out her lair with her children is what the Earth formed around, but then the Doctor appears, and it turns out Time Lords hunted Arachnos for sport.
Gallifrey.
So his instincts kick in and he floods the lair, killing her children. This is the darkness in the Doctor when Rose isn't around, but Donna convinces him to stop.
You can stop now!
In the end, she decides not to go with him. This was a solid episode to add to the Christmas schedule, even if it was clearly filmed in 30-degree summer, and acted as a palate cleanser after the Series 2 finale, and it gave us plenty of memorable scenes, such as the Web Star over London, and all of Tate's comedy.
This man you're marrying, what's his name?
Lance.
Good luck, Lance.
Oi!
A week later, on New Year's Day 2007, the first season of Torture had aired its final 2 episodes, but also the pilot episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures premiered. The hour-long Invasion of the Bane wasn't as good as the show had become, introducing us to Sarah Jane's adopted alien son, Luke, and the girl across the road, Maria, as well as the alien computer thing in the attic, Mr. Smith. The actual series later in the autumn would consist of 2 by 25-minute episodes, more akin to the classic series. Mainly written by Phil Ford and Gareth Roberts, this CBBC series catered to the child audience of Doctor Who. It was a lot lighter and frivolous, not going into much depth and with sillier aliens, though it would develop more maturity and complexity in its later seasons. While the first season had the addition of Clyde to it, it wasn't really until the bland Maria got replaced by Rani in season 2 that it really took off.
Ready? Always.
And that wasn't the only show on CBBC, there was also Totally Doctor Who, a quiz/game show with young fans competing for who would make the best companion. Hosted by Barney Harwood and Liz Barker in the first season and Kirsten O'Brien in the second, it ran in parallel to Series 2 and 3. It was not kept for Series 4, it was not as popular as the narrative spin-offs. Though as it ran alongside the 13 episodes of Series 3, it ran an original story, The Infinite Quest, in 4-minute segments, making it its own 45-minute episode. The animation by Cosgrove Hall left much to be desired, and the story's pretty light. Needing to do something every 3 minutes, it becomes a bit all over the place, but at least you can say we got this extra animated episode. Going into Series 3, the new companion would be Martha, played by Freema Agyeman. Notably, she was the first proper companion of colour. A medical student, she's basically the Doctor's rebound. She fancies him whilst he's oblivious, the sort of toxic mix that many have found themselves in. Whilst adding realism, some people found this grating. In the first episode he kisses her completely unromantically, but for her she's hooked. While Agyeman had appeared in Doomsday, this is explained away.
I had a cousin, Adiola. She worked at Canary Wharf.
And she first appears as Martha in the aptly named Smith & Jones. Taking from the opening of Skins, we see Martha calling each of her family, showing how chaotic and dysfunctional her life is. She's a medical student, and one day...
It's going up.
The rain is going up.
The rain goes up, and the hospital is transported to the moon. Wow, that's some overacting. The hospital is invaded by the Judoon, these rhino-like intergalactic police. This episode is a commentary for brash police brutality and how they do everything to the letter of the law with no independent thought. They're looking for Anne Reed, who's disguised herself as a human by drinking human blood, but by drinking the Doctor's, the Judoon find her and kill her. This opener was filled with imaginative ideas, action, character work, and had a good bit of humour.
It is. Oh.
Everything a good opener should be. I know I was hooked. And it introduced the iconic Judoon, which would become a recurring threat, not villain, just threat, in later years. In the end, the Doctor offers Martha a trip in the TARDIS to get away from her family.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it?
I noticed.
But just one.
Just one trip to say thanks. You get one trip, then back home.
So he takes her to see Shakespeare.
Shut your big fat mouth!
The Doctor takes Martha to meet Shakespeare, but he's not the boring archaic figure you'd get from English classes. Played by Dean Lennox Kelly, he's a boisterous showman, much like the rock stars of today. This energetic take on Shakespeare could be linked to the film Shakespeare in Love. Turns out there are three witches, Carrionites, who come from a place where the mechanics of the world are determined by words, like here it's mathematics, and thus have spells.
Creature, I name you! Carrionite!
They manipulate Shakespeare to use his great use of language to be able to open a portal to release the rest of their species, but he's also able to send them back. It's a basic historical celebrity episode with much of the story just being the Doctor and companion exploring the character and their setting. It's not a strong story. Solid, fun, but not great. It was written by Gareth Roberts, a legendary writer of the Virgin novels in the 90s, known for his tongue-in-cheek style writing.
Hit me on the chest! Ah! On the side! On the back!
Though whilst not apparent in his earlier works, he does hold some very problematic views, and as such hasn't been asked to write for the series since 2014. And in this episode, some of his politics unfortunately bleed through.
Can't believe I'm hearing this.
Political correctness gone mad.
Not exactly white, in case you haven't noticed.
I'm not even human. Just walk about like you own the place. Works for me.
And those are men dressed as women, yeah?
London never changes.
Yeah, let's move on. Having done her one trip to the past, they figure they should make it two, with one to the future. So the Doctor takes Martha to New Earth, where he had taken Rose. This is some extreme rebound behaviour.
You're taking me to the same planet that you took her.
What's wrong with that?
They find themselves in an alleyway with street vendors selling emotions like drugs. Then Martha gets kidnapped by people wanting to get on the fast lane.
What?
Turns out there's an almighty traffic jam, millions caught in the congestion. The Doctor's taken in by this Catman and his kittens, which Tennant just loved. After searching for Martha, he discovers what's at the lowest level.
Macra.
The Macra return, having appeared once in a 40-year-old serial that's completely missing. Though then they were intelligent manipulators, now they're just lumbering animals. This is explained away,
Billions, they must have devolved down the years, now they're just beasts.
but if they're not going to be the same, then what's the point in bringing them back? The notoriously bad practical effects of the Macra in the 60s are now replaced with CGI, which was a vast improvement. With novice Heyman the face of Poe, the Doctor discovers the highway was closed after a virus was spread by the Bliss drug that killed the city. Poe sacrifices himself to give the power to open it up and release the people who have been trapped in this jam for years.
10 miles in 6 years. How come?
This episode's concept and never-ending traffic jam feed into something we've all experienced, and how we can become complacent to something that should be frustrating.
It's been 23 years now.
But in all that time, have you ever seen a police car?
A brilliant idea, distinctive imagery, social commentary, beautifully scored, and character development. This is a great episode. Though there's this weird bit where everyone starts singing a hymn. In the end, the Doctor finally opens up to Martha.
I'm not just a Time Lord. I'm the last of the Time Lords.
In this moment, we see them finally starting to connect.
Oh, you should have seen it, that old planet. The second sun would rise in the south and the mountains would shine. I am a human Dalek.
Landing in 1930s New York at the height of the Depression, as the grand expensive Empire State Building is being built, we also see Hooverville, where the poor are being used as labour on the tall building or to go to the sewers where they disappear. Turns out it's the Daleks, making the skyscraper and harvesting the poor to either make these pig slaves or for their own experiments. At the cliffhanger we get the reveal of their intentions, which was spoilt by the Radio Times. The cult of Skaro, remember them, are wanting to cross Daleks with humans in order to survive, but this just causes infighting and they kill their leader. Also, when the Frankenstein-esque lightning hits to somehow cross the genes, the Doctor hugs the mast which somehow put Time Lord DNA in it. Essentially a more in-depth Evil of the Daleks.
Why? Daleks do not question orders! But why? You will stop!
The ideas about how gene crossing works is absurd, and the depiction of Daleks is way off, with them frankly being bitchy.
Affirmative.
While the design work throughout is great, and it has some good supporting characters, that's Miranda Raisin who would later be Constance in Big Finish, the script is just a bit of a mess in terms of its ideas and how they're explored. Hang on, that's a baby Andrew Garfield. The poor reception to this story upset its writer, Helen Rayner, who had been script editor on the first 2 seasons and Torchwood. She marked the first female writer of the revival series. When Confidential were going to go to New York to interview her, they decided to send along a skeleton crew to get some establishing shots, so this ended up also being the first revival episode with overseas filming. But despite these milestones, it's far from the best stories, and in the end there's one Dalek left and one pigman. Mark Gatiss takes a break from writing to now act in a Doctor Who episode, playing the Professor Lazarus who has invented a de-aging machine. Get it, Lazarus? Yeah. However, it unlocks some hidden part of his genetic code or whatever and turns him into this monster. There's a run around in the lab and a church, but eventually he's killed. And that's pretty much the story. Being very reliant on this CGI monster, the technology just wasn't quite there yet, and the human face in it is just very uncanny valley. There's not really much more to say about this story. It very much exists. While it had some nice horror and this is a pretty cool shot, it's pretty much the definition of bland Doctor Who. What it does give us is some time to explore Martha's family, her sister who gets a job wherever things are happening, and her mother who doesn't trust this Doctor.
He is dangerous. I've been told things. What are you talking about?
At the end, they agree to let Martha stay as a travelling companion, halfway through the series. Up until this point, her travels never felt permanent, and this comes too late. Maybe they should have done this before Daleks in Manhattan? Well anyway, on to their first proper adventure together. I used to love going around as a kid saying, "Burn with me." The first contribution by Chris Chibnall, this very much makes use of his ticking clock motif to keep the plot moving, with there being 42 minutes before this ship falls into a star, hence the title 42. The Doctor and Martha find themselves in this ship, captained by EastEnders' Michelle Collins, where some of the crew have become infected by the star and are burning the other crew, leaving these silhouettes akin to the shadows of Hiroshima. This story is very much a runaround, with them needing to unlock doors by answering quiz show questions.
Who had the most pre-download number ones, Elvis Presley or the Beatles?
In the end, it turns out the star's alive and is stopping them getting away because they've illegally mined some of it for fuel. The story may not be much, but it's full of tension. What does stand out about this story is the design work, the heat and sweat, the clunky machinery that is the ship, the glowing eyes of the CGI of the star. A lot of this imagery just sticks right in your mind. And it's also amazing that whilst this was broadcast a month after the movie Sunshine, it was actually written and filmed long before, so these being pretty much identical stories is just a complete coincidence. It's this iconography that sticks in your mind, even if the story itself is a bit tacked together. In 1995, Paul Cornell wrote the novel Human Nature, featuring the Seventh Doctor and Bernie Summerfield. This novel was voted as the best of the Virgin novels by Doctor Who magazine in 1997, with a score that was even higher than any of the TV episodes. While Russell T Davies said he didn't want to get into adapting expanded media,
God, well, he's already written the best Doctor Who story ever, so we should do that. It was there on the shelf, I thought, right, that's lovely. It's not to be touched, it's such a good novel.
He made an exception for this one and had Cornell write an adaptation.
The most wonderful thing, perhaps, of my career in Doctor Who is to have written the original Human Nature and then to have written it for television.
Though Davies did do a lot of rewriting on it. The differences between the novel and TV episodes are of course too many for me to list, so I'll just put them up on screen now. But the biggest difference was of course Martha, who, being black in 1913, would be treated very differently to the white Bernice. So she ends up having to be a cleaner, getting racist abuse from the schoolboys.
Hands like those, how can you tell when something's clean?
And it not being seen as possible for her to have been given a formal education.
You read that in a book?
Yes, to pass my exams.
This of course makes it more difficult for people to take her seriously.
This is what we call a story.
Being chased by unseen aliens, the Doctor wipes his memory and changes his DNA to hide, putting himself into a fob watch. He becomes John Smith, a public school teacher, and falls in love with the matron, Joan, played by Jessica Hines. But when the aliens, simply known as the Family of Blood, steal the bodies of the locals and start going on a murder spree, wanting the Doctor for his regeneration ability, this leaves John Smith with a dilemma. Does he live a happy life with Joan, as we see through this beautiful montage, or sacrifice himself to become this Doctor to save the day? This makes for some powerful emotional scenes that are impossible not to shed a tear to.
I'm John Smith. That's all I want to be, John Smith, with his life and his job and his love. Why can't I be John Smith?
Of course, in the end, he becomes a Doctor and he goes full on dark mode.
He never raised his voice. That was the worst thing. The fury of the Time Lord.
Giving the family their immortality but trapping them forever, the dark figure that Smith was afraid of becoming. This story was beautifully written, with many powerful lines.
Like fire and ice and rage. He was like the night and the storm in the heart of the sun. Stop it.
And filmed at St Fagans National Open Air Museum, used brilliantly by its director Charles Palmer, it beautifully captures the time period. Overall, this really drives the emotion. But there's also the schoolboys. Baines, played by Charles Dickinson's great-great-grandson Harry Lloyd, who is really creepy. and Tim, played by Love Actually's Thomas Brodie Sangster, who has some psychic ability. Both would go on to be in Game of Thrones. But these schoolboys being trained for war thinking it's honourable, not knowing what they'll be thrown into in a year's time, getting exposed to their first real combat. Tim's psychic ability saves him and his bully in the trenches, and at the end, the Doctor and Martha see him at his last Remembrance Day service. This is easily one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time, and one of my personal favourites, if not favourite overall. It's a character-driven story that pushes the emotion and explores the classist, racist attitude of the time, with war impending. It might not have much in the way of monsters, hence the Scarecrow drones taken from the 1969 comic The Nightwalkers. This is a beloved and iconic story, an example of Doctor Who really pushing what it could be. But all that said, the next episode would take that even further.
You're not looking at the statue.
Neither are you.
If you go to IMDb and filter for items with at least 10,000 ratings, the 16th highest rated item on the whole site is Blink. After Love and Monsters the previous year, Doctor Who again found itself needing a Dr. Light episode. Stephen Moffat agreed to pen it and threw something together. While he didn't think much of it, while writing he was told he may have struck gold. His inspiration came from two places. First was a short story he wrote for the 2006 annual called What I Did on My Christmas Holiday by Sally Sparrow, about a girl who finds a message from the Doctor under the wallpaper. Another, older Sally Sparrow finds a similar message in an old abandoned house. After her friend disappears, her and her friend's brother find that the messages left on DVDs by the Doctor are one half of a conversation they have.
How can you know what I'm gonna say?
Look to your left.
I'm writing in your bits. That way I've got a complete transcript of the whole conversation.
When they happen to bump into him, they give him the transcription and it's all neatly tied up.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
The other inspiration came from when he was walking past a graveyard and saw an angel statue. When he came back the other way later, it was gone. What if these statues could move when you weren't looking at them? From this came what would become one of Doctor Who's most iconic monsters, the Weeping Angels. These scared the shit out of me and kids all across the country. There's a deep psychological fear to the unknown. We don't see them move, so we don't know what they're capable of. One blink and you're dead.
Don't blink. Don't even blink. Blink and you're dead.
Or rather trapped back in time so they can harvest your temporal energy. They're a species no one knows much about, the Lonely Assassins.
Lonely Assassins, they used to be called. No one quite knows where they came from, but they're as old as the universe.
And there's also the score with the building and striking violin sounds. Gould's work is half of what makes this so terrifying. This is prime jump scare material. Blink was a sensation. It's now famous in its own right outside of Doctor Who, and many use it as the episode to introduce people, even if the Doctor's barely in it, because it pushes the boundary of what Doctor Who can be.
It was raining when we met.
It's the same rain.
Instead, we follow Sally, played by rising star Carey Mulligan. It was suggested that she be brought back as a full companion when Moffat took over, but by then Mulligan had already gone to America, filming An Education, which would get her first Oscar nomination. This would be followed by nominations for Promising Young Woman and Maestro, as well as notable appearances in Drive, The Great Gatsby, Mudbound and She Said. Blink is iconic beyond Doctor Who. Easily one of the most remembered, beloved and feared episodes. I had friends whose parents had banned it was so scary. To say this is the best of Doctor Who is an understatement.
What's your favourite adventure?
Blink.
Definitely Blink.
Blink. Every time.
A success that's, well, unlikely to ever be repeated. It is lightning in a bottle, and it gave us an iconic new recurring villain. At the end of Torchwood Series 1, after Owen had opened the rift, Jack heard the sound of the TARDIS and, taking a severed hand, abandons his team. At the start of Utopia, the Doctor lands in Cardiff to refuel on the recently active rift, but Jack clings to the outside of the TARDIS, and thus Jack returns. Thrown out to the year 100 trillion, they come across the last of humanity in a Mad Max-esque compound surrounded by jagged-toothed man-eaters. At this point, the episode doesn't seem to be offering very much, though it's heartwarming seeing humanity linger on in this refugee state.
Indomitable, that's the word. Indomitable!
And the hope they cling on to.
My mum used to say the skies are made of diamonds.
This was John Bell, who won a Blue Peter competition to be on the show, and actually launched a fairly successful career appearing in the Hobbit films. But this episode turns when the Doctor meets Professor Yana. Good! The joy and excitement of meeting another scientist, to get to work together and be complimented on his genius work to put the ship together.
You built this system out of food and string and staples. Professor Yana, you're a genius.
Played by Derek Jacobi, a veteran of stage, television and films, he gives a wonderful performance here. And it's worth noting he had played the Master in Scream for the Shulker.
I am the Master, and you will... Evening.
Of course, what this episode is known for is the twist. Slowly built up and riding on Jacobi's performance, it turns out he's chameleon-arched as well. He is the Master.
I am the Master.
He doesn't last long before he's shot, but in these few moments we see more than enough to put Jacobi in the ranks of the Masters, before he becomes John Sim from Life of Mars and steals the TARDIS, leaving the trio fending for their lives. Easily one of the all-time greatest cliffhangers. While the story itself is a bit tacked together, why are there controls in the radiation death room? It's just a canvas for the shocking reveal. Even all these years later, it raises goosebumps, and how it was built up to through the series.
You are not alone.
And now we all know who the mysterious Harold Saxon is.
Here come the drums!
It's worth noting it's debated whether Utopia is actually the first of a three-part story. It's officially listed as such, but it's kind of in a quantum state of both being one and two stories. Also, the second part, The Last of the Time Lords, got its title from the proposed Spielberg movie in the early 90s. After the all-timer cliffhanger, they get out of it by just getting out. Back in the 21st century, and it turns out the Master has become Prime Minister. It's a commentary on Blairism, where people were voting based on the charisma and youth rather than the policies.
What was his policy? What did he stand for?
I don't know, he always sounded good.
Everyone being hypnotised into supporting him. After killing his cabinet, he announces he's made contact with aliens, the Toclophane. These flying balls were conceived to stand in for the Daleks had they been unavailable for Series 1. The Master kills the President of America, imprisons Jack and Martha's family, reduces the Doctor to an old man, and wipes out a tenth of the world's population, leaving Martha to save the world on her own, leading us to this grand finale. Martha travels the world, adopts her own companion, and lets herself be captured. And this is where it all falls apart. Russell T Davies said he regretted making the Series 1 finale such a big scale because every year he had to try and top himself, and now he had written himself into a corner. So Martha's plan? To spread word about the Doctor so that the entire world can use the power of prayer to make him Space Jesus. Yeah, oh my god. They destroy the Paradox machine, oh yeah, that's what he does with the TARDIS, and the past is erased. Except everyone on the bridge of the Valiant. Oh yeah, that's his flying aircraft carrier. But then the Master is shot by his wife. Oh wait, I forgot his wife. Yeah. The Master gets his own companion, Lucy Saxon, a pretty dumb rich girl marrying the power and money. except eventually he starts abusing her and, yeah, becomes a wife beater. It's a bit much. But he dies in the Doctor's arms, begging him to regenerate. And the Doctor cremates him, except a suspicious hand picks up his ring. John Simm's Master is a lot more lively and insane than his predecessors, turning the character up to the max, even being the campiest we've ever seen.
I can't decide whether you should live or die. Oh, you probably go to heaven.
But frankly, this all works. This is the Doctor's insane best enemy, and he just delivers memorable line after memorable line.
Because of the gas.
What gas?
This gas.
Don't you see, all we've got is each other?
Are you asking me out on a date? I think it's down the back of the settee. I did have a quick look. I found a pen, a sweet, a bus ticket, and have you met the wife? It's amazing. Television in their stomach. Now that is evolution.
Whilst this finale may have a BS ending, the journey getting there is great. It manages to create this world that the Master's destroyed, and how it's affected everyone at the street level. There's a scale to it, a real sense of desperation. The scene in which Martha's family is arrested really hammers in how these large events are coming down to the domestic level, everything going wrong so smoothly and with heightened action.
Take aim! Go now! Fire!
And when the trio go into hiding, running down the alleyways with nowhere to go, all this sets the beautiful scores of This Is Gallifrey and All the Strange Creatures. I don't care if it's Ex Machina'd its way out, this is still an immense 2 hours of television. But in the end, Martha decides to get away from this relationship that almost killed her family. Even in this moment, the Doctor's still oblivious.
Is this going anywhere?
Yes!
And he flies away alone. That is until the Titanic crashes into the TARDIS. Except not quite yet.
What? What? What?
Written by Stephen Moffat, this 8-minute Children in Need special just sees the 5th and 10th Doctors meeting. 5 just thinks there's something gone wrong with the TARDIS interface and doesn't question who this guy is.
You're... Oh no.
Here it comes, yeah, I am.
A fan.
Yeah.
What?
But in the end, what this amounts to is giving Tennant an opportunity to gush over the Doctor he grew up with, and remark on how he inspired him.
I was all dashing about and playing cricket and my voice going all squeaky when I shouted. I still do that. Oh! And the trainers. And... Snap.
It's a short but sweet addition to be inserted into the closing cliffhanger.
Because you know what, Doctor? You were my Doctor.
Also, it's pretty funny considering Peter Davison would later become Tennant's father-in-law. What I love about this season is how it feels like we're exploring the alleyways of the universe, not the grandeur or glamour of space, but the bins and pipes. This really acted to fill out the universe and the realism, and is what really made me fall in love with it. But there's also the focus on characters, both the guests and the recurring stars getting a lot to work with. And also Murray Gold's iconic score. The Series 3 soundtrack must be the best, with scores like The Doctor Forever, All the Strange Creatures, Martha's Theme, This Is Gallifrey, etc. While the first half of this series may have been a bit hit and miss, in the latter half we get one of the greatest runs of episodes in TV history, and that's not just me exaggerating. With both Human Nature and Blink, as well as the tortured episode Captain Jack Harkness, getting Hugo nominations, with Blink winning the award. While they had now learned how to deliver a good production, they were hit by a moment of brilliance that allowed them to combine it with great storytelling. But what also makes it is its focus on characters. While the unrequited love arc with Martha may be a bit weird, there is a realism to it. Looking back 2 decades on, this is seen as the height of the golden era of the revival, a height they've been trying to chase ever since. And hey, this is the season which confirmed McGann as canon, which had been in doubt to this point. Its viewership may have been down ever so slightly from the previous with 7.55 million average, with the Dalek two-parter and Blink dipping below 7, it did set the scene for record viewership in the following year, and maintained the same average chart position at 13th of the week. In fact, it was so popular that the finale had been planned to be screened at Trafalgar Square during Pride. This was cancelled after car bombs were found near the area though. But the success in quality and popularity of this series cannot be understated, and with 3 spin-off shows as well as Confidential running at the time, it cannot be denied that Doctor Who was at an all-time high.